I'm Barbara Reese, and this is This Week in East Brunswick. We're very lucky today to be joined by Kevan Lunney, a fiber artist and a local resident. How are you today?
Great, thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Now, could you tell us a little bit about some of the artwork, what got you interested in the fiber art that you enjoy today?
Oh, well, I'm from Ohio, where everyone learns to sew. So I learned to sew when I was 9 years old, and and I was also painting when I was very small. I had grandmothers that painted, so art was always around. And I went to school for art, and then I transferred to FIT in New York City and became a fashion designer and went into the sleepwear industry. So I've always sewn clothes. And after I had children, I combined the art and the fiber by making quilts that would hang on the wall in their bedrooms. And then I kind of remembered that I enjoyed art more, so I developed more of a contemporary art flavor to the fiber art.
So part of our discussion today is that you have a special exhibit in Manhattan coming up soon. Mm-hmm. Could you tell us a little bit first about the exhibit, when it is, and some of the details, because some of our local residents may want to attend?
Well, that would be wonderful. I would love it if everyone would come. It's called the Art Bazaar event in New York City. It's at the corner of 7th Avenue and 20th Street in a lovely little gallery, like it looks like a goldfish bowl. It's glass on both sides. And the opening is February the 4th from 6 to 9 p.m., and it continues until February 13th.
And what is the theme of this particular exhibit?
Well, the work that I will be showing there is the pieces you see here, and this is called my Archeology Series. This series began when I heard a Radio Lab report on WNYC in 2007, and it was about the discovery of ancient artifacts that were buried in Oxyrhynchus, Egypt. And they were 1,000 years of garbage buried under the sand. What was interesting about this to me was that they were so well preserved that the 3 archaeologists from Oxford University could take them out of the ground and read the ancient Greek as though it was brand new. And it started me thinking about recycling and garbage and that sort of thing. These people really thought that their garbage was going to disappear. And we know ours is not. So I thought, wow, if we knew that we had to be responsible for our garbage, that somebody was going to be looking at it 2,000 years from now, how would that change our behavior? And our garbage, when somebody looks at it 2,000 years from now, let's say in the year 4011, if anyone is left on this planet and looks at what we've left behind, chances are it's going to be a plastic soda bottle or something not too exciting. These people, however, even their daily records that were left behind told us so much about their civilization. And they left behind drafts of some very famous literature, Homer's Odyssey, and writings about Jesus and people that have walked the earth back then. They also left some very mundane things about inventories and records and jokes, and some of the jokes are exactly what we tell jokes about today. Not a lot has changed. But along that idea, I thought, what is it that we value in our society? And is there anything of everyday life that we value? What would that be? And the idea just stuck with me about age and wisdom and value. So as I started to work on my artwork, these concepts started to come through more and more. And
if we may look at the pieces, what were some of the ways that you made it look ancient? For those of us who are not art aficionados, what are some of the ways that you made it look older?
Well, I really wanted to imbue the idea of age and also wisdom. And I chose the gold and the gold leaf to actually give the idea that something was of value. when I distress the fabric by raveling it and actually sanding the surface, that gives an idea of age, but it didn't necessarily give the idea of value until I put the gold leaf on it. And then all of a sudden, you start asking questions like, who gilded this and why? Was it something discovered like we discovered maybe the Dead Sea Scrolls, and maybe another group of people thought it was so worthwhile that they gilded it and revered it? Or was it the original people who made this that gilded it and thought it was valuable? Or was it maybe the people who dug it up 2,000 years later who thought, wow, this is really great, let's gild this and keep this is important? I think it brings up a lot of questions about originality and what lasts through the ages. So essentially these pieces are linen, because that's an ancient material. I like the fact that it gives more texture than some of the cottons. And the markings in it are actually representational of text. And I wanted it to appear like it said something of wisdom and value. But after a lot of thinking, I think it's probably already been said by wiser people than I, and I didn't necessarily have to make it say anything. And so the viewer can fill in what they think is valuable and wise.
Well, that's what art is all about anyway.
That's right. So
now, for those of us who have seen your work, most of us have seen your work before, may not have actually realized that we've seen your work before at the East Brunswick Library. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
We have 11 of my quilts hanging in the Youth Services section on the curved brick wall, and they were all created. All the little squares were created by about 250 of the residents of East Brunswick, mostly children, but also one quilt was made by the ESL group that was meeting at the time. And each square was made by the kids, and I assembled the whole quilt and the exhibit.
So you have a wide range of artistic ability. From here, where we're dealing with more of an ancient theme, whereas that is more of a traditional quilt theme. And you also work with a group of people who are involved in all kinds of fiber art, and you said that they also have exhibits as well. Could you tell us how they got you started and a little bit about them?
I received a letter in the mail in 2002 from a lady who ultimately became the executive director of an international organization called the Studio Art Quilters Associates. And she sent out this letter just saying, if you like to make art quilts and you want to help each other market, sign up. So I was one of the original 17 members, and I've been a member ever since. We find venues for each other. We help each other market our work. And that was really how I got started exhibiting.
And you have exhibits all over New Jersey at different times, some of the other towns, including Princeton. If we want to find out more about your artwork, is there a website that we can consult?
You can. For all of the Fiber Revolution exhibits, you can go to fiberrevolution.com. And for my own exhibits, you can go to kevanart.com, and that's spelled with an A, Kevanart.
And what would you say drew you to fiber art? There are many kinds of art. You're obviously a talented woman. Why this kind of artwork for your outlet?
That's a very good question. Maybe it has something to do with my grandmother making quilts. I've always been surrounded by sewing and scraps, and my first quilt was a bed quilt, and it was made of the scraps from where all the places I worked in New York City designing sleepwear, and that was to go on my bed after I was married. So all the quilts from then on were just a way to use scraps around the house and keep myself busy when the kids were small. So I think it has something to do with the tactile nature of them. Having always sewn, it was just more natural for me to sew my artwork than to paint it.
Well, we could talk for some time, but thank you so much for your time, Kevan, and it's been a pleasure.
You're welcome.
We're going to wrap up, but one last time, give us the website that people can look at your work as well as consult when these different exhibits will take place.
Okay, it's kevanart.com.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.